Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back with another segment of It's Getting Real. I don't know how I feel about this case. And I know I say that sometimes, but I really don't know how I feel about this case because I guess my first question to you all after listening to this is tell me if you really feel like justice was served because situations like this happen often, and the thought of someone doing minimal time in order to find out where someone's remains are, it just doesn't sit well with me because it just seems like the person who commits the crime gets away with what they're doing because they have a secret. And as a result of the prosecution wanting to know the secret, they bargain. But we'll get into it. Sherry Jackson was born on April 1st, 1980 in Burke County, North Carolina, to her parents, MacArthur Jackson and Carla Jackson. In court, her mother described her as a wonderful human from the inside out. She was beautiful, friendly, loving, and caring. She loved doing things for people and made everyone feel like they were special. She was extremely popular in high school. Not only was she a cheerleader, but she was also an honor student who eventually became homecoming queen. So high school is great, and she decides that after high school, she wants to leave where they were at the time, Asheville, and move somewhere else. Asheville was a small town and she had big dreams. So once she finished high school there, she graduated and she decided to move to Greensboro, North Carolina to attend college. It wasn't that much farther from where she originally was, but 2 hours in a lot of places make a big difference. So that 2 hours to her felt like another world. She went off to college for a short time at the University of North Carolina and decided that she didn't want to continue at that moment, so she put it on pause. At some point, she started working as a family and healthcare coordinator at Shipman Family Care. Remember the name Shipman because that's going to come into play later on. Sherry worked with disabled and elderly patients. It was hard work, but it was something that she loved doing. So, despite her leaving college, she found something that felt more like a career to her than a job. All seemed to be going well for her until November 2006. On November 29th, 2006, Sherry had made plans with some of her friends and coworkers to go to a holiday party, but she never showed up. Her coworkers found it to be odd because Sherry loved parties and she was the type of person who, if she said she was going to be somewhere, then she was going to be somewhere. To make things worse, after that week and the following week, Sherry did not show up to work either. And she didn't come and pick up her paycheck. No one had seen or heard from her, not even her parents. So Sherry's coworkers know that at this point something has to be wrong with her because it isn't like her not to communicate with them or for her to just not show up. She was known to be on time and to overextend herself and to make sure that she was there for, her job. So the fact that not only did she not show up for her job, but she didn't come and get her money, something was funny. So they go over to her apartment, they knock on the door, and no one answers, but they notice that her car is there. So her car is there, but she's not answering, and nobody's heard from her. I would be concerned too. So they decide that, they're going to contact the police. The police let them know they're going to come and check it out, but they have to wait for approval before they can enter. I don't understand what made them wait. I would think that the circumstances alone, that no one had heard from her, that it had been several days since she was last seen, that her car was out there and she wasn't coming to the door. I would think that that would speed things up, but they follow protocol. So on December 3rd, 2006, the Greensboro police get permission to enter her apartment. Inside, when they entered the apartment, they could immediately tell something about this was bad. because they noticed immediately that the apartment was in disarray. Furniture was knocked over. They saw some blood spatter on the wall. The bathroom floor was slippery, and police believed that someone had used some type of chemical agent in attempt to clean up the scene. So a CSI team was called in, and they decided to use luminol to search for blood. They didn't have to search hard, though. So Howard Newman, which was the chief assistant DA, said, the entire bathroom lit up from one end to the other, which indicates the presence of blood. It was as if someone had taken a rag and tried to wipe it clean and said to themselves, okay, this is clean, and thought that the job was done. It revealed blood all over the walls and the floor and the tub and the sink. Investigators took several items from the apartment. They took Sherry's hairbrush and lipstick and bobby pins in hopes that they could process them for her, a DNA identification. So her boyfriend, DeCarlo Rashawn Bennett, arrives at the scene in a panic. DeCarlo Bennett was a local club promoter from the area. He and Sherry met at a party, and shortly after that, they began dating. In the beginning, things seemed to be really good between the couple, but by the end, in 2006, things were very different. Things just didn't go well. If I'm going to jump the gun, what I'm going to say is he was abusive. It started off as verbal and emotional abuse and eventually grew to physical abuse. And Sherry knew that she had to get away from him. But as we all know, when leaving abusive relationships, it's not only difficult for the person, but it also is one of the more dangerous periods in time, because they say a lot of violence happens when someone is trying to leave the situation. So she's in this abusive situation, and most of the people in her life had no idea that this was happening to her. He tells police that Sherry and him had gotten into an argument on November 29th, which is also the last day anyone heard from her. And after the fight, Sherry left to go to the party with some friends. But we know that she never went to the party with the friends because the friends said they were looking for her and she didn't show up. He also reveals to police that Sherry was 3 months pregnant with his baby. The police investigate the situation. At some point, they turn to Sherry's friends and family for help. This is when they learn that several weeks before Sherry disappeared, she called her dad. She told her dad that someone was in her house and they wouldn't leave. Sherry's dad spoke to the person, and it was a man on the other end of the call, and he tells him to leave. But Sherry never told her dad who it was. Kind of odd to me that he didn't find that out, or that she didn't say it. Lets me know that she was still protecting whomever that man was. So Portia Shipman, who worked with Sherry, told the police that Sherry was reconnecting with her ex-boyfriend, Reggie, who happened to be Portia's son. Sherry began working for Portia at her clinic, and the family immediately were drawn to Sherry and they loved her. So Sherry and Reggie met in 2002. They dated for a while, and she was even, so serious with him that he became comfortable with introducing her to his children. So she even, was a part of his kids' lives from a previous relationship. They end up breaking up, but they remain good friends. Of course, the police are now interested in Reggie because they look at, interpersonal relationships when it comes to crime. So they're looking at, DeCarlo, and they're looking at Reggie, and then eventually they look at a third person. After Sherry's breakup with Reggie, that's when she met DeCarlo at that party. DeCarlo fell fast and hard for Sherry, even giving her a ring. You got to be careful of some of these people. I'm not saying relationships don't happen quickly, but when you have people who want to isolate you, or who are quick to make certain moves and try to lock you down, understand that you better keep an eye on those people, because some of those people end up turning out to be bad news. So he gives her a ring, but Sherry realizes that she still cares for Reggie. Not only does she care for Reggie, but she's trying to get away from DeCarlo, because as I told you, she was tired of being abused. So they make plans, Reggie and Sherry, to go to the party, the holiday party on November 29, 2006. As I said, his mom was the person who, was in charge. That was her business that Sherry worked at. Shipman. When Sherry didn't show up, for it, Reggie went to her apartment looking for her, knocked on the door, probably called her, but he didn't get an answer. Police later confirmed that he was telling the truth, and they decide Reggie isn't a person of interest anymore. He's not lying to us. They were in good standing. We got to look elsewhere. Police obtained Sherry's phone records as well as her current boyfriend, DeCarlo's, and they see that the last person that she spoke with wasn't DeCarlo, but it was Andre, who happens to be a friend of DeCarlo. When questioned by police, Andre tells police that DeCarlo, even though he's his friend, was very possessive and controlling of Sherry, and that Sherry was trying to end things with DeCarlo. So police look through his phone records, DeCarlo's, and they notice that after November 29th, DeCarlo never contacted Sherry again. He didn't even try. Which is odd, because this is supposed to be your girlfriend. This is supposed to be someone you care about. Y'all got into an argument. You would think that you would try to call her, reach out to her, especially since you claim that she's 3 months pregnant with your kid. Why wouldn't you want to call her, see where she is? Her coworkers care more about the fact that she's not there, and you haven't said anything to her. Like, you're mad with her supposedly, but come on. Police also located some calls that were made to 911. Apparently, police responded to a call placed by Sherry several months before she disappeared. DeCarlo and Sherry had gotten into a fight, and it was clear by the appearance of Sherry that something was physical because she had markings on her body, but she tried to minimize it. I wish we would stop doing that. If someone hits you, don't protect them. That goes for a man or a woman, because there are far too many instances where people put their hands on people one time and nothing is done, and they think that it's okay to continue to put their hands on you, and they don't stop until someone is hurt. It's ridiculous. But in a lot of instances, that's what happened. So DeCarlo is interviewed by police. Again, he admits to being in Sherry's apartment on November 29th. He's like, I already told you I was at the apartment on the 29th, but I'm going to give you a little bit more information. She cooked us dinner and she started getting ready for the party. And we had an argument about what she decided to wear, because he felt like her outfit was inappropriate and he wanted her to change. He said they get into it. He ends up leaving the apartment with her still being inside. Why wouldn't you have said that in the first place? You seem to be adding on every time they talk to you. Now, of course, you do remember things sometimes, but you looking a little sketchy to me. At some point, police asked DeCarlo, because she's been missing for a while, they still don't know where she is, if he'd be willing to allow them to search his car. He agrees. I don't know why he agreed, but he agrees. So they find some spots in the car that look like blood. They're dark in color. They look like blood. Then they open up the trunk, and as soon as they open up the trunk, they were hit with the smell of decomposition. If you are somebody who has been around bodies, you know that smell. I remember when I was in forensics class, we had to be around a corpse, and baby, I will never get that smell. I'll never forget what it smells like. If you know, you know. So these are officers. They've encountered this, unfortunately, several times. They know what decomp smells like, okay? Blood samples from the car were collected, as well as some other samples from the trunk, and they were sent to the crime lab. DeCarlo explains it away to officers and says that, it could be Sherry's because she had cut herself while making dinner. I don't understand how her cutting herself while making dinner then turns into her blood getting in your car, especially since you already said that you left her at the home. It doesn't make sense. He said that he had the rags in his car and the blood must have gotten in his car when he opened the door. Why would you have the rags in your car? Why wouldn't the rags still be with her? That explanation also does not make sense. So the police release him because there's nothing that they could do at this point. They're going to wait, for what happens as far as the crime lab stuff. But they decide to put surveillance on him. They decide to watch him. After he left the station. He leaves and heads in the direction of Durham, North Carolina. A few days later, because they rushed the results, police received the results back from the blood samples, and it's determined that the blood in Sherry's house was hers, and the blood on the car was a mixture of not only Sherry's blood, but DeCarlo's blood. So on December 14th, 2006, DeCarlo Bennett was arrested in Wake Forest, North Carolina, and he was transported back to Greensboro. Over the next few months, the police are searching all over the place for Sherry's body because at this point, since none of her family has heard from her, they feel like they're looking for someone who is no longer here. And they also work on building a case against DeCarlo, but they couldn't find her body. About 19 months after her disappearance, they get a call from DeCarlo's lawyer who reaches out to the district attorney saying that DeCarlo would like to tell the police where he's buried Sherry in exchange for a plea deal. The fact that he was this bold to present this to them just shows how horrible he was, because he wasn't doing it because he felt bad. He was doing it because he just wanted to hurry up and get his time over with because he knew that they had some stuff on him. I absolutely hate plea deals because it allows people like DeCarlo to get away with their crap. And it's not fair. Yeah, it doesn't cost the taxpayers as much money, but what is that when it comes to human life? DeCarlo pleads guilty. He said, I'll plead guilty to second-degree murder. And I'll tell you where she's at. So the police are reluctant about taking the deal. And they tell them, okay, before we do this, we got to talk to the DA and we need to talk to Sherry's family. I can't say what I would do in this situation. I could say what I would like to do. I have my own beliefs about, your remains and things of that nature. And I understand that in this situation, a crime was committed against their child and they just wanted their child back. They said to the police, we just want our child back so that she can be properly buried. And they end up saying, go ahead and do a plea deal. But I wonder if they really understood what that plea deal meant. So DeCarlo had killed Sherry and left her in his trunk for several days before he decided to bury her. We find out that he buries her in his mother's backyard. Now, the mother no longer resides there. Someone else, by the time that they did this, was there. I don't remember if she lived there while this happened, but either way, He drew a map of his mother's backyard in Gramercy Park. I may be saying it wrong. Gramercy Park. On June 26, 2008, the police excavated the backyard of the house now owned by someone else. They look for 13 hours, don't find anything. They're frustrated. They think that this gentleman is wasting their time because you were supposed to draw us a map of where she is and we can't find her. So what they decide to do is they decide to let him come with them because he's like, look, I'm not lying. I told you where she was. Y'all aren't looking right. I'm going to go with you. Okay, let's go. So they go to the backyard, and without any hesitation, he walks to the area, shows them, where she's at, says she's there. I buried her there. After an hour and a half, because the police have to take their time, they have to make sure they don't damage anything, her remains matter, they find her skeletal remains. The family wanted to give her a proper burial, but by the time that they found her, all she was is bones. And yet he still gets to have this deal. It's believed that Sherry had been hit in the face due to the amount of blood evidence that there was, as well as strangled. But my thing is, do we even know if at that point she was hit in the face as a result, then she was strangled? Because they saw a lot of blood evidence, but who's to say which time that evidence was there, seeing as to how he hit her a lot of times over the years. As I said, it started off as emotional and it became physical. They feel like she was hit in the nose because her nasal bones had damage to them. So he pleads guilty to second-degree murder, and he is sentenced to 13 years in prison. You heard me correctly, 13 years for killing her. He kills this girl, buries her body, doesn't tell the detectives where she is for over a year, and all he gets is 13 years. You get more than that in some places for minor crimes. But yet, he's killing someone. He unalives someone, and he gets 13 years. Crazy, right? It bothers me because this is someone's daughter, and 13 years. Even if she wasn't someone's daughter, she's a human. Where was the humanity in this situation that he so callously murdered her? And here's the thing, she was strangled. That's not something that you can just do in 10 seconds and the person is done. This involves a fight, which is probably why the blood of him was mixed in with the blood of her on that car, because she probably clawed and did some other things trying to save herself from this man. But all he gets is 13 years, and it's second-degree murder. In 2008, the Sherry Denise Jackson Foundation was started by Portia Shipman. That is the mother of Reggie, who used to date her, and also, her previous boss. The foundation was set up to help prevent domestic violence. If you do the math, you'll realize at this point that DeCarlo, Mr. Bennett, he is out. He served 12 years and 4 months in prison. A billboard was set up not too far from where he was that read "Domestic Violence Kills" before he was released. On Saturday, his sentence was ended, according to the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. Upon finding this out, Sherry's mother said, "I wish he had a longer time in that place so that he could maybe have a chance to think a little deeper. But legally, he's out, and he will live his life. If he wants to marry, if he wants to have children, if he wants to have a family or whatever, he can do that, while my daughter is gone forever. I can't say that I wish him well, because I don't think I do. I hope that he'll think of this every day of his life, and maybe it will help him to guide someone else away from going through the violence that my daughter did. Portia Shipman said, I would like for DeCarlo Bennett to say, I am sorry that I did that. Sherry did not deserve that. And I want to do whatever I can to make sure that the legacy of Sherry lives on while I'm out. I want to make sure that I do something to help. But he's not going to do that because at this point, he still hasn't apologized to that family. DeCarlo, in my opinion, got off easy. He's still able, as her mother said, to go on and to have a life. And we don't even know if he received any type of help to address his problems with putting hands on women while he was locked up. This wasn't a one-time thing. He had done it before. There was 911 calls that proved it. There was evidence that officers had seen and had wrote down of markings and stuff on her when they responded to a call. It wasn't his first time. I really hope that he's changed as a person, but the fact that he hasn't expressed remorse for what he's done, the fact that he so callously was able to walk into the scene and identify her body, that he had her parents worrying for her, that at one point he called her parents asking if they saw her, knowing what he did, shows how vile he is. He hasn't said anything to Sherry's family, which makes me feel like he hasn't changed. I know Sherry's family had to make a difficult decision, but I don't know if I would have been willing to set him free. The story of Sherry Jackson, unfortunately, is common. Are you hearing what I'm saying? It's common. It shouldn't be a common thing. But so many women and sometimes men have found themselves in the exact situation that she was in. And while some may get out alive, Sherry did not. And that, to me, is just sad. It's so sad. She was, I believe, 27 years old. Her life was just really beginning. She was in a career that she loved. Whether or not she wanted to be with him or didn't want to be with him, her deciding to leave him shouldn't result in her being unalived. You should be free to be with or not be with whoever you want to be. And if you're the type of person who can't control yourself by keeping composure and by keeping your hands to yourself, then you don't need to be with anybody. What you need to do is you need to get help. I would love to see far less Sherrys in the world. I hope that it comes to the point where if any of you who are listening to me are ever in a situation where someone puts their hands on you, get out. And I'm saying this as someone who's been through it. Get out. One time is enough. If they do it once, they'll do it again and again and again. Don't protect them. Don't hide anything. Reveal who they are, because people like that will continue to do this and get away with it because people aren't speaking out about it. I know it's hard. I know it's not always easy to do that, but you have to protect you. Continue to rest, Sherry. Y'all let me know what you thought about this one. I know I didn't go as in depth. Some of the information on her is kind of limited. I did a little bit more digging, but they really, like, even picture wise, there's a lot that's not out there about her. There's more about the foundation out there. I feel like in instances like these, we got to remember some of these people, because her person the person who hurt her, they're out here now and they're living their life. And he's young enough that he can still do all the things that her mother said that he's going to be able to do. Meanwhile, she's gone. Let me know what you thought. Until next time.